All right, let's dive right in, shall we? Today, we're all about product development manager interview prep.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We're talking about that dream job where you take an idea and make it into something real that people actually use and, love.
Yeah, you're basically the one making sure a product comes to life, bringing all the teams together and getting it out there.
And let's face it, the interviews for these roles can be a bit intimidating.
For sure.
But don't worry, that's why we're doing this deep dive. We're going to look at real questions straight from RoleCatcher.
Oh, yeah. RoleCatcher. They have a huge database of interview questions, right? Like over 120,000.
Yep. Plus, we'll throw in some insights from their career guide, specifically for product development managers.
So basically, we're giving everyone the inside scoop on what it takes to ace these interviews.
You got it. Now, the first question you're probably going to get is, can you explain your experience with new product development from ideation to launch?
Ah, the classic. But it's not as simple as it sounds.
Right. It's like they want to know you've actually done this, not just read about it in a textbook.
Exactly. They're looking for a deep understanding of the entire process. Like, think it like building a house. You don't just start hammering away randomly. There's a process from the foundation to the finishing touches.
Yeah, so how do you answer this without just listing off every task you've ever done?
Instead of just listing tasks, tell a story. Walk them through a project where you were involved from the very beginning to the end.
And focus on the challenges, the decisions you made, and the results you achieved.
Right. Details matter. For example, don't just say you did market research.
Yeah. Tell them about the methods you used, the customers you were targeting, what you learned.
Exactly. Paint a picture for them. So instead of just saying, I was involved in user testing, you could say, we A/B tested 2 prototypes and found that users preferred version B because it was easier to use.
Oh, that's good. So it's all about being specific and showing them you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And don't forget about those follow-up questions they'll throw at you. Be ready to talk about how you worked with different teams, like engineering, design, and marketing.
Oh, yeah. They'll definitely dig deeper. What tools did you use? How did you handle disagreements?
All that good stuff. And think about a time when things didn't go according to plan. How did you adapt? How did you solve the problem?
Okay, so let's move on to another common question. How do you prioritize competing product development projects?
Oof. Yeah, this one can be tricky.
It's like, how do you manage a million things at once and still stay sane?
They're trying to see your organizational skills, how you think strategically. They want to know you can handle multiple projects, make tough choices, and use your resources wisely.
So how do you answer this without sounding like a robot listing off prioritization factors?
Think about the framework you use. Maybe it's impact versus effort or a prioritization matrix. Explain how you actually apply that framework to make decisions.
I see. So you could say something like, I prioritize projects based on their potential impact on revenue and customer satisfaction while considering our resources and the company's overall goals.
Exactly. Show them you understand the big picture. You know what can help with this?
What?
RoleCatcher's AI features. Their Copilot AI analyzes the job description and suggests how to tailor your answers to highlight the skills they're looking for.
It's like having a personal coach who knows exactly what the company wants to hear.
Now let's talk about a question that really focuses on the customer. How do you incorporate customer feedback into the product development process?
This one is huge. We've all seen what happens when companies ignore their customers.
Totally. They want to know you're dedicated to building products people actually want and need. Show them you know how to gather, analyze, and use customer feedback.
Should I list all the methods I've used for gathering feedback, like surveys and focus groups?
It's more than just listing methods. It's about showing how you use that feedback to make decisions. How do you decide which feedback is most important? How do you balance what customers want with the company's goals and what's actually possible to build?
Right. I remember we redesigned a whole feature based on user feedback. It was a lot of work, but it made a huge difference in how people use the product.
Perfect example. Share those stories. They might also ask about how you handle negative feedback or when customers want different things.
Okay, so we've talked about experience, prioritization, and customer feedback. What's next?
Let's talk about being adaptable.
Yeah.
Can you describe a situation where you had to pivot a product development project?
Oh yeah, the dreaded pivot. In product development, things rarely go exactly as planned.
They want to know you can handle those curveballs, that you're flexible and can adapt to new information or challenges.
So what kind of story should I tell here?
Think about a time when the original plan had to change significantly. Maybe because of new technology, a shift in the market, or something unexpected happening within the company. Explain why you had to pivot, what steps you took, and what the positive impact was.
Like, imagine we're launching a new app and suddenly a competitor releases a very similar app. That would be a good pivot example, right?
Absolutely. You could talk about how you analyzed the competitor's app, figured out what made your app unique, and adjusted your plan accordingly.
So it's all about showing them you can think on your feet and make smart decisions when things change.
Now, how about this one? How do you ensure that the product development process is aligned with the company's overall strategy?
This feels like it goes beyond just managing individual projects. It's about understanding the company's vision and making sure your work contributes to that.
Exactly. The RoleCatcher Career Guide talks about this too. It emphasizes that a good product development manager isn't just building products, they're building the future of the company.
Love that. So how do I show them I get the big picture and I'm not just focused on checking things off a list?
Share examples from your past where you connected your work to the company's overall strategy. Maybe you found a new market opportunity that helped the company grow or led a product redesign that kept customers coming back.
Okay, connect the dots between what you do and the company's goals. I'm getting it. What about those hidden dangers that can pop up in any project? Risks.
Great question. And that leads us to, how do you manage risks in the product development process?
They want to know I can see potential problems and not just ignore them.
Right. They're looking for a proactive approach to risk management. Don't just say you're good at identifying risks. Tell them about the specific methods you use.
Do you use a risk register? Do you do SWOT analyses?
Yeah. And be ready to talk about contingency planning. What do you do to prepare for potential roadblocks? What steps do you take to minimize the impact if those risks actually happen?
It's like they want to see that I'm a problem solver, not just someone who hopes everything will go smoothly.
And remember, product development is about working with people too. And sometimes those people might not agree with each other.
Oh, here we go. The team conflict question.
Exactly. Can you describe a situation where you had to resolve a conflict within a product development team?
We all know that teams can have disagreements, especially when you have strong personalities and everyone's passionate about the product.
This question is all about your leadership, your communication, and how you handle conflict. They don't expect you to have never had any conflict, but they want to see you can handle it well and keep the team working together.
So I shouldn't brag about how I always solve everyone's problems.
Not quite. It's more about showing how you approach conflict. What do you do to understand different perspectives? How do you encourage people to talk openly and find common ground?
It's not about being right. It's about finding a solution that works for the team and the project.
You got it. This is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can be really helpful. Their video response tool lets you practice your answers and get feedback on how you're coming across, like your tone of voice and body language.
Wait, seriously? So it's like having a virtual coach who helps you nail those tricky interpersonal questions.
Exactly. Now, one last question for this section. How do you measure the success of a product development project?
Time for some data. We need to show them we're not just getting things done, but getting the right things done effectively.
They want to see that you understand important metrics and use data to make decisions. The RoleCatcher Career Guide mentions things like meeting deadlines, staying on budget, and hitting sales targets. But those are just the basics.
So what else should I be thinking about?
Think about a mix of numbers and, feelings. What about customer satisfaction? How engaged are people with the product? Is the team happy?
Good point. It's not just about shipping a product. It's about shipping a product people love that helps the company succeed.
They might even ask follow-up questions like, what if a product hits its sales goals, but customers aren't happy?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, so we've covered a lot. It feels like we've just scratched the surface of this role.
We definitely have more to discuss. But for now, let's take a moment to absorb all this information.
We'll dive into even more questions and insights after a quick break.
Be right back.
Stay tuned.
Before the break, we were talking about how important it is to stay up to date in this field.
Yeah, with all the new tech and trends coming out all the time.
Exactly. And that often comes up in interviews, too. They might ask you something like, how do you stay up to date on industry trends and new technologies?
Oh, yeah. That question always makes me feel like they're checking if I'm a dinosaur or something.
It can be overwhelming for sure, but honestly, they want to see that you're curious.
That makes sense.
That you're actively looking for new information and always learning.
So how do I prove that to them? Should I just list all the blogs and podcasts I follow?
It's good to be informed, of course, but they want to see how you apply what you learn.
Okay, so more than just knowing about the trends.
Right. Talk about technologies or trends that excite you and how they could change the future of product development.
Oh, so like how companies are using AI now to personalize things for users or automate stuff in the development process.
Exactly. That shows you're not just reading headlines, you're really thinking about how to use these new trends to make better products.
And it ties back to building the future of the company, like we talked about before. I
Exactly.
remember RoleCatcher's Career Guide also had tips on this. They suggested going to conferences, joining professional groups, and following thought leaders on social media.
All great strategies. You can even mention specific conferences you've been to or groups you're a part of.
It's like showing them you're serious about your career and always growing.
Exactly. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI tools can be really helpful.
Oh yeah, how so?
Their Copilot AI can actually analyze job descriptions, find keywords related to new technologies, and suggest ways to include them in your answers.
Wow, so it's like a cheat sheet that helps you speak their language and show them you're up to date.
Precisely, it takes the guesswork out of figuring out what's important to them.
Okay, that's pretty amazing. Now, I know we've covered a lot of questions already, but are there any other curveballs they might throw at us?
Definitely one that often catches people off guard is, what is your greatest weakness?
Ooh, that one's the worst. It feels like a trick question.
I know what you mean, but it's a chance to show them you're self-aware and that you're always trying to improve.
Okay, so how do I answer it without sounding fake?
Choose a weakness that's relevant to the job, but that you're actively working on.
So instead of saying I'm a perfectionist, which everyone knows is just a brag in disguise,
Exactly.
I could say something like, I sometimes struggle with delegating tasks because I want to make sure everything is done to a high standard, but I'm working on getting better at delegating by insert specific actions you're taking.
Perfect. That shows, your weaknesses and you're taking steps to address them. It also shows you're willing to learn and grow, which is really important.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better about that question. But what about those behavioral questions where they ask you to tell a story about a specific situation?
Those can be tough because you have to think on your feet and remember specific examples from your past.
Yeah, I've heard of the STAR method situation task action result.
Hmm.
But how do I make sure my stories are actually interesting and relevant?
First, you have to understand what skill they're trying to assess. Are they asking about leadership problem solving or working under pressure?
Okay, so figure out what they're looking for.
Right? Then choose an example that clearly demonstrates that skill.
Like I remember when I had to lead a team through a big product redesign. We had crazy deadlines, things were constantly changing, and some people didn't want to change.
Yeah.
But I managed to get everyone on board, and we ended up creating an amazing product that exceeded everyone's expectations.
That's a great example. It covers the situation, the task, the actions you took, and the positive outcome.
So it's all about being specific and telling a story that shows them what you can do.
Exactly. And again, RoleCatcher's AI can be a huge help here.
Oh, yeah.
Their Copilot AI can analyze the job description and suggest skills or qualities the company is looking for. It can even give you prompts to help you remember relevant experiences from your past.
So it's like having a personal coach who knows exactly what to ask to get the best stories out of you.
Precisely. Now let's talk about a question that can be a bit more delicate. What are your salary expectations?
Ooh, yeah, that one always makes me nervous. I don't want to ask for too little, but I also don't want to scare them away.
It's a balancing act for sure, but you need to be prepared. Before the interview, research the average salary for similar roles in your area. You can use online resources like RoleCatcher's salary data.
Good to know. So how do I answer when they actually ask me? Should I just give them a number?
You can give them a range based on your research,
Yeah.
but also emphasize that you're flexible and open to discussing it further.
So I could say something like, based on my experience in the market rate, I'm looking for a salary between insert range, but I'm more focused on finding the right fit and talking about the overall compensation package.
Exactly. That shows, your worth, but you're also willing to negotiate.
And it shifts the focus away from a single number to the bigger picture.
Now, we've talked about a lot of questions, but before we finish, I want to go back to RoleCatcher's AI features. We talked about Copilot AI and how it can help with interview answers, but you mentioned it can analyze resumes too.
Oh, yeah. How does that work?
It's like a super smart resume editor. It can scan your resume, compare it to others, and suggest improvements.
Wow. So it can tell me if I'm using the right words, if I'm highlighting the right skills, and if my formatting is good.
And it can even tailor your resume for specific jobs to make sure you're using the right keywords.
So it's like having a professional resume writer who knows exactly what recruiters are looking for.
Exactly.
It's amazing how technology is making this whole job search process so much easier.
It definitely helps, but at the end of the day, it's still about you. It's about your skills, your personality, and what makes you unique.
That's true. Technology can help you prepare, but it's your passion, your drive, and your perspective that will really make you stand out.
And that's where preparation meets authenticity. You have to know your stuff, be able to articulate your value, and let your enthusiasm shine through.
That's a great point. Enthusiasm can make a huge difference. It shows you're really interested in the opportunity and excited to join their team.
Exactly. It's about showing them you're not just looking for any job. You're looking for a challenge, an opportunity to learn and grow, and a chance to make a real impact.
And that's a great place to wrap things up. As we finish this deep dive into product development manager interview prep, remember that while tools like RoleCatcher can be incredibly helpful, your greatest asset is your passion, your drive, and your belief in yourself.
So go out there, ace those interviews, and land that dream job.
And until next time, happy innovating.
It's amazing how we just naturally started talking about AI and how it's changing the way we look for jobs. It's like technology isn't just impacting the products we make, but also how we prepare for our careers.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Speaking of AI, you mentioned that RoleCatcher's Copilot AI can also look at resumes. How does that work exactly?
Think of it as like a super-powered resume editor. It can scan your resume, compare it to tons of others, and tell you what needs work. It can suggest stronger verbs to use, point out your biggest achievements, and even make sure the formatting is perfect for those systems companies use to screen applicants.
So it's like having a recruiter looking over your shoulder, giving you tips on how to make your resume really pop.
Exactly. And it can even tweak your resume to fit specific job descriptions, making sure you're using the right keywords and highlighting the skills each employer wants.
That's super helpful, especially when you're applying for a bunch of different jobs. It's crazy how much technology is making this whole process easier and more focused. But in the end, it still comes down to showing off your own skills and personality, right?
Absolutely. Technology can give you a boost, but it's your passion, your drive, and your unique perspective that will really impress them in the interview.
Couldn't agree more. It's about making a connection with the interviewers and showing them you're not just a list of skills, but a real person who can bring something special to their team.
It's where being prepared meets being yourself. You have to know your stuff, explain what you bring to the table, and let them see your excitement for the role.
That's such a good point. Enthusiasm is contagious. It really makes a difference. It shows them you're genuinely interested and that you'd be thrilled to join their team.
Exactly. It's all about showing them that you're not just looking for any old job. You're looking for a challenge, a chance to learn, grow, and make a real contribution.
I think that's the perfect way to wrap this up. We've covered so much about prepping for product development manager interviews, and while tools like RoleCatcher can be super useful, remember, your secret weapon is your passion, your drive, and your belief in yourself.
So go out there, knock those interviews out of the park, and get that dream job.
And until next time, happy innovating.